What's up, everybody? I am late today because I was actually watching a video about these Judge Dredd case files. And apparently they have a whole 6 series plus volumes where they're going through Judge Dredd from the beginning. And I was watching a video. I'll post that link in the chat here if people want it. But I'm actually kind of excited about that. It's another thing to buy and collect. How exciting.
Is that the the Judge Dredd? I saw that video. I haven't watched it, but I saw the link. I got a sweatshirt. Oh yeah, here it is. Comics will break
your heart. Oh, look at those sad characters. Aw, it's true.
It's true.
Every time.
And then I have this one. I got this one in Fargo with the National Guard unit. The happy.
Oh, nicely done. Cool.
Vector field. Yes. Okay. Now we shall proceed.
So I'll show my get this week. So Mike Barron sent me a old school Nexus promotional poster that Dark Horse did back in the day. So I appreciate that. I'll actually put that on my wall back there so that people stop complaining to me about it. My white walls.
Your white.
Cool. All right. So last week we got up to the point where I guess in Rachel Rising, that's my professional segue, where we started to learn that there's a deeper backstory going on, and that this is all connected to these witches from 300 years ago. Plus, Lilith seems to have some supernatural beginning of the world things where she goes back even further than that. And then it kind of cut off at that point. Where did it cut off exactly? Once you read so many issues, it's really hard to do week to week. Oh yeah. Rachel got buried with a bunch of the bones there.
Yeah, that's because it starts with another rebirth again.
Right, another rebirth again. Lots of rebirths.
I just realized that kind of correlates with biblical terms too, because you have the sacrifice from Abraham. Well, it doesn't actually take place, but the God tests him, and then that's a foretelling of the actual sacrifice of Jesus for our sins.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of the same in this.
Yeah, it definitely has that vibe now that you look at it. And then our next quote actually starts from King Solomon, which lends us is a good spot to that, which is, "What has been done will be again. What has been done will be done again. What has been will. There's nothing new under the sun." Yeah, it's a pretty standard quote there, but it definitely plays into that whole theme that you were just mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, I promised people. Let's see, are people showing up yet? We got 3 people. Hey, Bianca, welcome to the chat, and hopefully we get some folk in here. It's going to get harder as people don't read along with us, and then they can't really catch up. But I guess they can catch up on replay if they really want an in-depth discussion of this volume, which I hope they do, because it's worth it. I think this is great. And just first impressions this week, I was not let down at all. I felt like the pace of this 12 issues was a lot faster than the pace of the first 12 issues. Do you agree?
Yeah, this one, near the end of this, you really get the whole point in one panel.
Yeah.
The whole story. And I just noticed again, looking at the issue we're about to talk about, it starts much like issue number 1, where it's a lot of no talking and then into the story again.
Right.
It seems shorter. It seems like it's almost like it's another rebirth or whatever type of deal, but it's going quicker this time.
And I guess from a perspective of writing a story that you don't know how long it's going and you're thinking it's an ongoing, you have to give readers jumping on points, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to do these kind of start spots. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get anybody who just buys issue 13 and then reads on, right? And you need that. Of course, almost no comics are written this way anymore, but it seems like Terry Moore actually made an attempt in issue 13 to make it so that somebody can get in and actually just check it out from this point.
Well, it's like almost every comic, every 5 issues is a jumping on point because they start with number 1. And the comics are always written in a manner where you have to know who these characters are, otherwise you're lost.
Yeah, that's rough about comics these days. Oh well. So in this one, Rachel is just talking to her cat at the beginning after she's wiping off a bunch of blood and guts and gore off of her.
Yeah,
and then you get a really gross
to the accident.
Yeah, you get a really gross reminder that she was stabbed pretty badly, and she's got a big hole in her now, which is another biblical reference, the piercing of the side of Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that goes right into that. Now Rachel has been pierced thusly, and her wound is not healing. So we get into that, and she starts vomiting up dirt from having swallowed it from being buried alive. And then it switches up to another scene with Earl and Dr. Seaman. And they're back in the body bag freezer, and they show Jet, who at last issue was electrocuted and killed again. And Earl's desperate to try to get her back alive and is just kind of hanging with her, and she really doesn't come back alive. And then we get into this really creepy fairy tale, right?
Oh,
yeah. And Dr. Seaman is a really creepy dude. And he's like, you got to kiss her to wake her up. And then he goes a little further. He's like, it's not just a kiss that wakes her up. You got to go a little further. So
there was even in page 260 where it shows him, and then it shows the guy that's beside the woman, and they have the same face.
Yes. Oh, it's really creepy. Yeah. Gross. Terry Moore has a really real. I've talked to the guy, and he's like this, like very demure, very very nice, just like super chill guy, but super warped mind. Oh man, pretty funny. So it goes into the story of, I guess, Snow White, or not Snow White, Cinderella.
Yeah, I haven't done any research to see if this story.
I did do the research, and there was a story, and they called it the Princess Zelandine, and I'm gonna spell that out in the chat for people if they want to research it themselves. And that was a medieval story about a girl who was basically raped while she was in a coma, and then she wakes up 9 months later because she's got a kid at that point. And the dude who did it kind of flies away like a mysterious sort of deal. And this is actually a medieval story. This is legit. He researched this, and this was, I guess, the origins of the Cinderella story. And it is a much darker, much grosser version of the Cinderella story than we have now.
Weird, because I assume the Cinderella story comes from the Grimm fairy tales, which are also a lot of the times very dark.
But this not. This goes well beyond that. So Dr. Seaman tries to encourage Earl to bang the dead Jet, and Earl, being a normal person, will not do that.
Being a normal person.
Oh man, so funny. Welcome, Fiona. Glad to have you here. All right. So we get out and we see the series of witches, and they've cast a spell on this guard of like the water treatment plant of the town, and they set him up to put, I guess, porn on his hard drive there, and then they poison the water supply of the whole town, and they're going to try to pin it on him. So we start to see the witches. I guess we've got Lilith and her cabal of two witches who follow her, doing these terrible things at this point. And that's just a real quick scene. Then we get into Rachel talking to her Aunt Johnny, and she comes back, and Earl brings Jet's body to her, being like, help, we need to do something like that. So that's a quick issue, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Quick issue, which is great, because that means the stream is going to go faster. So
And this one, I noticed a lot of the quotes were like musicians.
Yeah, and that's what we get next. David Crosby from Crosby, Stills, and Nash, of course. If I could only remember my name, and I don't know what that quote's from.
No.
Well, yeah.
But it's in reference in the story. Rachel doesn't know what her previous name was.
Correct. It was actually, okay, so I looked it up. It is the debut solo album by David Crosby, released in February 1971. So this was literally his solo album title. And Terry Moore's a big music guy. I know he's a guitarist himself, and he's really mostly into boomer music. But so you'll get a lot of references like that. I have a sneaking suspicion, and I've never had this confirmed, but I think Jet is named after the Paul McCartney song.
Oh,
you know, but I don't know. But given all the
like Joan Jett or something,
or Joan Jett, yeah, it's possible, one of the two. So. But since there's so many music references like that, it's something like that. Maybe Terry can let us know at some point. I don't know if he watches this. But all right. So next issue, Jet, they try to wake her up, and they kind of fail at it. And classic storytelling trope right there is the try and fail, right? You try to do something and you fail at it, and then you need some...
you basically learn from it.
You learn from it and do something different on the next one, and that adds tension and drama. You use this as a writer in almost every instance, because if you have the hero just go through and beat the villain or whatever it is, and just solve things immediately, there's really no tension and no drama to it, which makes it very difficult. So if you notice, like all the best Spider-Man stories, Spider-Man tries and fails, and it looks like it's. It reminds the Ditko one, the where he's pushing up all the, and the water is coming in, the machinery. He's failing, he's about to die, and that's what adds that tension. And then when he finally overcomes it, that's what goes on here. So that's a very standard storytelling device, but very nice also. So it works, and then she calls Johnny to try to get Johnny over, and they have a little conversation about that. And it switches scenes to Natalie, and they're trying to find. And there's two people trying to find this Natalie gal, and Natalie was the gal who was killed in that bar issue, right?
Yeah.
And these people are her friends, wondering what happened to her because she's supposed to get married to some other guy. And she's just not answering her door and standing in there, and it's just a little emotional scene with her. But she's obviously some sort of witch now. And then we get back to the standard of no dialogue. And there's so many pages with no dialogue in this story, and I think I'll show this because this is kind of neat. How do I do this? And you get, this is, I guess, Rachel in the 1700s or 1600s, was it? I guess. And you don't really understand what's going on here. It's 2 pages, and she's got a box, and she buries it, and you don't know what this is. This pays off at the end of like volume 4 or the end of this whole stream, basically. There's 3 pages of it, sorry. And she buries this box in the ground, and you kind of can see it's her, but it's a little bit different. And very beautiful drawings. If you look at, especially, I would say the 3rd page of this, 278 in the omnibus, and you go to the 3rd panel, you really see Terry Moore's really excellence in just drawing beautiful women. And I'm trying to get this here. Here it is. It's like that middle panel right by my finger right here. You just see like that face and that forlornness, just absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And that's a big part of what makes these stories pretty wonderful, is you can look at this art all day long, and he's always going to give you a pretty girl, which is nice, because everybody wants to look at pretty girls. So and then it transitions to her in modern times with no dialogue, and she's kind of looking into that grove of the same area. No idea what that's about at this point. He gives no clue. You just kind of get this flashback, and you're like, And you, from the last issue, she remembers now, she says. And so you're kind of getting flashes of that, of her remembering her past life, which is nice. And then let's see. Zoe's in a car driving by with a guy who's going to try to put her in another foster home. And Zoe runs out of the car and she sees Rachel. And so their storylines are starting to converge a little bit. And then the witch is standing back there behind Rachel, and Zoe runs away. And then we get a scene where Rachel talks to the witch here, and they kind of talk about her past a little bit, and they kind of know, like, you get that there's a lot more beneath Rachel than there is, and that she's not actually Rachel. So we're playing on that theme, building up that suspense a little bit more, but not really revealing everything just yet. We'll get the reveal later. Zoe goes into a corner, and then the priest who killed everybody last issue, who has a demon inside of him, now talks to Zoe and offers to bring her to his church or whatnot. And that's the end of that issue. So very cool.
And that's super creepy because
super creepy.
Previously in the video, we already know what his plans are. So
right, yeah, that's an icky storyline. But fortunately, Zoe seems to be able to overcome it well, because if she didn't, that'd be a very upsetting storyline to read. All right. So next we have, for the third issue, which is issue 16 now, we have, and the one thing I'm upset about in this omnibus is I really wish there were issue numbers on this, it's all the covers are in the back.
It's like every time you finish an issue, you got to like do multiplication or division. So
to figure out where we're at. Now, I guess if you're doing a read through of all of it and you're not doing it like we are, breaking it down like that, I guess it doesn't matter. I still like to know, like and this bugs me about a lot of omnibuses or trade paperbacks. It's like when they don't include that.
Imagine a book not having chapter names.
Right. But it's a lot. I'd say like 40-50% of trade paperbacks, graphic novels do this though, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's my only criticism of this book.
They don't have, like, the cover pictures. I guess this doesn't. They're in the back.
And I get why they're in the back. So I think because those are colored and nothing else is, that putting all the colors together probably was part of the printing process.
Yeah.
So I understand that. I still would have preferred black and white covers.
White version.
Yeah.
And then had the colors in the back.
Or even just like with these little quote scenes here, because there's so much room on the page. And I get this is the first page of the comic and what they actually look like in the issues themselves. But if you just add issue 13 up top or something like that, it would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's this is a nitpick of the composition of the book. I have zero nitpicks about the story or about the art. I mean, like, getting into that level is a testament to how good this story is. So, so we get back to Earl holding Jet's hand again. And if you watched last time, that's a very tender moment because Earl is the only person Jet can feel. And she's still dead at this point. It's been a full issue. And is this 2 issues now? Are we 2 issues in? Yeah. I forgot the quote on this one. Yeah, this is the 3rd issue, so it's 16. Okay. I was right not to be afraid of any thief but myself, who will end up leaving me nothing. Catherine Ann Porter. Do you know who Catherine Ann Porter is?
I think she is another. I Googled it. I believe it's another musician.
Catherine Ann Porter. Oh, no, we already saw her. Did we already see her? Or is this another? It's an American journalist, essayist, short story writer, novelist, and political activist. Is this the same one from last week?
Yeah, that's the same.
Okay. So she's quoted again here. All right. Okay, so now we get into this Jet scene, and again, very little dialogue. We get a little snoring from Earl, and he wakes up. Little slice of life again. Like he layers in these slice of life things in between the weird, creepy horror stuff, which is great, and that helps you connect with the characters a lot more. And then the big reveal is Jet opens her eyes at the end of the 2nd page here. and then she's up and she freaks out and is like, why am I naked? And she doesn't remember anything that happened to her from going to the hospital and getting zapped. None of that she remembers.
Yeah. So what's good about this is it's like you're getting the same thing that happened previously, where she was actually happy, with what's this guy, Earl conduct, but now this time she's actually upset because she is like, why am I always naked? So it's slightly different.
Yeah. But it reinforces, and that's good because, again, reading this issue to issue, which is how I read this originally, like we're now 16 months from when this happened, or probably 13 months because it was probably issue 3 or 4 when this happened the first time. And you kind of don't remember all the specifics, and that little tricks like that help you remember things without like a summary page, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. Then we switch to Rachel, and she is out in a graveyard, and we have like a statue of an angel with like some tears of blood or something like that. And the statue's not covered in snow. Very, very, this is a horror trope that's pretty standard right here.
Yeah.
And she tries to talk to her mom, and very bizarre, creepy moment again. So we went from
the ground.
Yeah. Sticks her hand into like the grave box of her mother to try to like commune with her, and touches her dead mother's face, and then she flips out.
Yeah, this is really weird. I didn't even understand this at all.
I don't quite understand because we don't see what she saw.
Yeah.
And she also doesn't tell us what she saw anywhere in the next several issues, at least. So, but what this does, because we're starting to see that Rachel has powers that others don't, and she's got this ability to like see into the spirit world and things like that, which happens a few times. So I think this is an early example of that, is what it's meant to do, and it's also just meant to amp up the creepiness of the issue a little bit, right? Because something creepy and nasty has to happen to every issue. It's a horror story,
and then ultimately you're wondering what that was, so you want to keep reading. So
right. So that does definitely work on that device. We get back to Johnny, and then we get back to slice of life stuff again. So Johnny's just hanging out, some funny humor stuff, and then the water thing from last issue starts to pay off, and we see rat droppings in the water first.
Oh my God.
Nasty. And then straight up rats come out of toilets and waters and faucets and things like that. And then the next several pages, we get different scenes of that, and it just escalates, and we see a whole scene of like, dozens of rats swarming out of the water at this point.
This part is Earl and
Jet
running out of the house.
Yeah, so Jet still is just in her like nightgown from the hospital or whatever, and you see this very cartoony look here, which is great. I actually really enjoy this. It changed because we have so much darkness and so much nastiness in this. You get these lighthearted moments are why I can read this, which I don't typically read horror or like it at all. Here we go. And just really, really old school cartoony look right here. Very fun. Very fun. All right. So and
then you flip the page and you have this nice quick cartoony look, and you flip the page and you get Zoe and this very detailed and like awesome looking picture on the next page.
Absolutely the opposite. Yeah. So we get the cartoon. The next page is another gag about rats. And then once we get to Zoe again, yeah, he draws these beautiful backgrounds. Zoe's actually sitting there killing rats that come out of the pipe, and that ends the issue.
This is disgusting.
Zoe's ridiculous. All right. So issue 17, we get another quote from Lilith, who is our bad gal, whatever you want to call her, set up in this. And these quotes are just from the character in the book. And I wonder why Lilith is the only one who gets quotes compared to the others. It's interesting.
Maybe because she's an actual like mythological figure.
Mankind is a summer field, barren, dry, and fallow. Very, very poetic. All right. And the characters are starting to notice that it never stops snowing, and that there's really weird things going on with the town, and the town's actually the problem, and actually causing a lot of things.
So you're getting these biblical plagues.
Biblical plagues, rats, famine, because you can't even drink the water, things like that. And we just have a scene where it all slows down again, and they kind of start talking. And Jet is very snarky and not very nice, makes fun of Catholics. And Carol here is a Catholic, and Carol is very just like adamant, about I'm just trying to do the right thing. So nice little scene here. It shows different perspectives of characters very well. And I don't think where you could go off the rails with this is I would say a lot of comic writers and artists and all that love to put in like anti whatever rants or whatever. And obviously, clearly, Terry Moore's not making a judgment on that based on this, but characters have different perspectives, and it's very well shown here, which I like.
Yes, because even the Catholic character is shown very positively.
Until later.
Yeah. But everybody has their moments.
But everybody has their moments, and that's interesting. Everybody's got a little good and a little bad, except for the weird demon guy who's in the next thing. So if you're demon possessed, you're demon possessed. It is what it is, right? Except for Lilith too. Lilith doesn't really have her moments either, I guess. Well, I think she does. Well, she kind of does actually. We'll get to that in a sec because we actually get to go back in time shortly. So we see Zoe in the church, and she's talking with the priest who we all know is the demon, and she in theory doesn't know it's the demon, but it's revealed later that she does know. So it's interesting how she reacts, which we'll get to once it starts to change. We go out into the snow, and we get into witches scenes, and Lilith burns herself alive in the middle of the snow, while the other witches are like, "What the heck is going on?" And they just kind of allow it to happen. And I guess this is some ceremony where she levels up in her power or whatever, right? So very, very bizarre and creepy. Yeah. Back to Zoe. Zoe finds a knife and goes outside of the church, and there's a goat tied up. And she asks about the goat, where he comes from. She unties the goat, or she looks like she's going to untie the goat, and then she slices its neck. And she's like, "Oh, that's a very sharp knife." And then she slaughters the goat. And this is an obvious horror, demonic symbolism right here because of the goat and all that. And the priest watches on as Zoe kills this thing and takes the knife, and he's very happy about that. Another priest shows up.
Common trope that it's Jack the Ripper's knife.
Yeah, we get into that in a sec. And I'll rant about that in a sec. Now, the priest kills another priest, showing that he's evil, dumps his body, and goes and sees Zoe sleeping, and that's the end of this issue. So we don't get into the Jack the Ripper commentary. Yeah. Not yet. We're almost there. And let's see. I think we're on issue 18 now. Am I counting right? I never know if I count right.
I'm not sure.
Just smiled, just a glance. The Prince of Darkness. He just walked past Roy Buchanan. So, do you know who Roy Buchanan is?
I think this was like a bassist or something.
American guitarist and blues musician, a pioneer of the Telecaster sound. He worked as a sideman and solo artist.
Guitarist.
Interesting. I am not familiar with this guy.
I have no idea.
I guess he was mistakenly called the best unknown guitarist in the world.
The greatest unknown guitar. That sounds awesome, then. So if you want to hear awesome music that you probably haven't heard 1,000 times,
you can research weird Terry Moore stuff because he knows them all. So there you go. All right. So lots of musical references creeping in now. And let's see, we get kind of a recap in the first couple pages that
big exposition dump.
Told in scenery, so at least you get some pretty outdoor scenery here. And then we actually, the next page, getting into creepiness, a cat kind of is going after these rats, but there's so many rats that they all go and gang pile on the cat and kill the cat. And the cat's got like, at first looks like a pretty feral beast, and then when it sees all the rats, its eyes go very cartoony also. It's very funny. So as much as it's a gruesome scene, he injects the cartoony humor into it. Rachel and Jet walk past as they talk about this, and they make some quips about being dead, which is some funny jokes. And we go into Johnny's study. Again, this is like a very detailed scene where he like drew all these books in the background and this like shag carpet and a dog who becomes important later. So there's an introduction. There's a foreshadowing of that.
Oh, there's actually like titles on the books too.
Oh, geez. Okay, let's look at this. We got World War.
There's one called The Impossible Life of INP. ENP.
ENP. I don't know who that is. There's one called Mars.
2 or 3.
A couple of them I can't read, but I can tell there's something on there.
Antarctica.
Yeah. Huh.
So really random.
All right. And so they kind of have a philosophical discussion about their whole dead and alive situation. And they talk about the idea. Johnny thinks there's a scientific explanation for all of this, of course. And Zoe's like, or not Zoe, Rachel's like, no, there's not. And we start to learn, about wakes and letting a body actually die. And we get into a few pages of this. Rachel shows Johnny the big hole in her, and Jet actually sticks her eye through the hole in her side. Pretty gross. But Jet's very funny about it. Very snarky.
Yeah, it's pretty it's the perfect gross but funny dark humor stuff.
It is. It's perfect on that level. And then we get a Strangers in Paradise reference. And we have they show this art piece in Johnny's house, basically, which is a giant art piece, and it's signed by Kachu, who is the main Strangers in Paradise character.
Oh,
so that's just that's a fan service moment right there. And they go back to the witches outside. And these gross dudes show up to the witches, and they're like, you girls are not dressed for the outdoor weather." And they're out there, and they imply that they're going to be nasty to them.
Yeah, it's just totally weird because if I saw like basically robed women with nothing on in the woods in the
snow, yeah.
Like, do you guys need any help or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't imagine that. But whatever. And then one of the gals has wolf familiars, and she just slaughters the dudes. So, and then there's a lot of her, talking to them at the very end of this, and then Lilith starts to come and rise out of the ashes at the end to end the scene. All right. Hey, welcome to Determined Sheepy. Good to see you. All right. Somebody calling my name. Somebody walking over my grave. Robin Trower. I think we're on issue 19. Robin. I don't know who Robin Trower is either.
English guitarist. I looked all these people up yesterday, but I forgot.
Oh, you forgot? Yeah.
English guitarist.
From the Robin Trower band, who I'm not familiar with also.
Never heard of him before.
Yeah.
Still alive, though. 75 years old.
Good man. All right. Lilith wakes up naked in the middle of this field, and she is
super
sad. Yeah, she's very different now. And she's kind of confused, it looks like, in her. And, she's screaming, "Take me, take me, take me." And you're like, what's going on? And then you start to see the ghosts of the dudes who were just slaughtered last episode, whatever. This would make a good TV show. And it was optioned for TV. Did you know that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I think it died though. So yeah. And this weird, creepy thing takes the dude's spirits and walks away with them. And Lilith freaks out about it. And she wants to go with them. And apparently that is Mal Malai, the angel of death, which they accused Rachel of being at the very beginning of the series, if you remember that.
Yeah, and you find out that she's not.
Right. But it is very real, and it exists.
Story.
And Lilith starts to go off on how Eve is really her jealous issue, and she wants to kill all of Eve's offspring, basically. And so
here's how you find out basically what the point of the whole story is.
Yeah, she's a much more. This is a big reveal. So she's not just some witch from the 1700s. She is straight up Lilith, and she's bitter, and she wants all of humanity to die. Which
you could have thought that. You probably should have realized that when her name's Lilith, but
right.
And she had already kind of said it, but here she like outright
explicit
intentions are and everything like that.
Much cooler spot. All right, and then we get to the jail, and our investigator, who is the bald investigator guy that was investigating Rachel and all that in their car accident before, comes back. He hasn't been in it very much, but he's the same character. And he starts talking to the water treatment plant worker, talks about the porn on the hard drive, and the guy's like, and he says exactly what the witches were thinking, and that it wasn't me. And the witches thought that they'd get away with it from that, but there's actual camera footage of the witches on screen, so they know that it was planted there. Yeah. And
I just can't imagine a government building a lot of the times having cameras inside. I mean, maybe like at the door outside or something, but in somebody's office, that just seemed kind of odd. That's some like Richard Nixon stuff.
It's interesting. I'm pretty sure now in 2020 that everything's surveilled everywhere 100% of the time. But, yeah.
I've been to a lot of bases.
All right, that's fair. And then they actually show that they have camera footage of one of them dumping whatever spell stuff to create all the rats into the water. And the investigator realizes we're all in trouble. And I'm glad that guy didn't get eviscerated falsely. You know, for me, that was a moment where I'm like, that really sucks to be that guy. He didn't do anything wrong. You know.
Yeah, he just was going to work.
And I'm glad that he got out of it.
Because you find out he's not even. They say he has no priors. You know, he's never done anything bad at work. He just
not a bad guy.
For some reason, he's got bad stuff on his computer, and everybody died.
Yeah, that's all. Oh man, such a fun storyline. It's so complex and so well woven, and I have to think that Terry was sitting there like as he's like drawing the issues, like, oh, I better. That guy was not a bad guy. I better do something about that. Because most of the people who get slaughtered have some.
They get nothing out. They're just like so flat. They get no mention afterwards. You know.
Yeah, and they were kind of bad before, so you don't feel bad for them that much. You know, except for the ones who come back. We get back to Zoe and the priest. This is where we learn about the Jack the Ripper knife, and he talks about how he's proud of her and all that. And so I hate Jack the Ripper being inserted into stories. I am so sick of it. I never want to see it again in any form. Like I feel like way too I don't know. I feel like way too many comics, movies, books, all just go.
What Jack the Ripper really is historically.
Right.
Which does add to the ambiguity and why people want to use it, but it's done so much that it's like let it die a little bit. Let it die, and at least there's not a Jack the Ripper who shows up. At least it's just the knife or whatever, and the knife gets passed down from generation to generation. I think we learn that all right.
We learn there's more to it later. They actually call it a sword, and so it was a sword originally, and it keeps getting pared down, and she turns into this like little knife. And there's a bad dude here that's all tied up in the basement. And the priest is like, hey, why don't you eviscerate this guy? Basically. And
he's done bad things. So you need to sacrifice him for the good. It's justice.
It's just
It's like, he's lying because Jack the Ripper story, and he was just murdering women.
But Zoe goes in and goes ahead and does it. And this is interesting. So we saw at the beginning, like when Zoe starts just like slaughtering people, she had the demon inside of her, right? And the demon was really controlling things. And you thought, okay, well, she was just controlled by the demon, maybe. But no, she is actually a crazy serial killer, all in her own right, and she's okay.
Well, and I mean, maybe she was corrupted by him,
right?
And now she's changed or something. But she's now under her own free will, also murdering people.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember when Babylon 5 did Jack the Ripper from a different era. I know, it's like, gosh, even in a sci-fi show, we get Jack the Ripper. Yeah, I really am not interested in Jack the. And I thought that when I saw Babylon 5, even when I saw that the first time, I was just like, man, why a Jack the Ripper episode? Like this.
I like hearing the theories about Jack the Ripper, but like in pop culture stuff, it's like we have no idea, so I don't want to really expound upon it with these whatevers,
Yeah, I know. So I'm sick of it. That's what it comes down to. Let's see. Then Earl shows up at Johnny's house after this slaughter incident, which is all off screen, by the way. They imply that she does it, and he doesn't show it. It's very Alfred Hitchcock style. Again, there's no. This is not. Her slaughter of this dude is not shown. It's just like it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then Earl is ringing the doorbell frantically, and he walks in to a table where Johnny and Carol, Johnny's friend, and whatchamacallit, Rachel and Jet are, and they are all dead at the table. And there's a note from Carol which says, "God help me, this is my doing. When the dead walk among us, the end days are here. Surely God will now and forever, and God something faith in him." So Carol killed everybody and poisoned everybody and left a note saying she did so. Womp womp. So yeah, that's a ugly ending. And what's interesting is the tension point at this point. We know Rachel and Jet are going to come back to life. They're not going to die. They don't, right? But we don't. We're sitting there like, wow, Carol and Johnny, holy crap, they're normal people. And so what's going to happen to them? And so that's a good tension point to end that issue on. At that point, I don't even know what issue. Was that issue 20? Is this 21 now? Something like that. Maybe we're on 20. Maybe we're on 21. And we get the best friends forever, thick or thin, whatever, old and gray, friends for life, to the grave and afterlife, the pact. Now, this is a reference to earlier in the story where Rachel and Jet made a pact as kids about that they'd be friends to the afterlife and all that. So we are getting references of people earlier in the story, which is cool. And this is a complete flashback at this point. We are in colonial times, and it's absolutely beautiful. And we see some gals here. I'm going to show a little art because it's been a while since we've done this. Terry Moore really does just an excellent job with scenery and setting and these gorgeous gals. And it's just nice to look at. And Terry puts in a horse in here, and comic artists, I mention this every time a horse shows up on something. Comic artists notoriously hate drawing horses.
Yeah.
And
I think does it go back to like the Frank Miller drawing it in Batman, and they get angry at how he drew it in that picture, or?
Yeah. And I don't know. I'll give a little criticism at this point, because I actually see, like, I would say Terry's horses are not exactly the best. If you look at page 371, panel 1, it looks a little compressed and stunted.
It's more like a pony.
It's a little bit more like a pony. And then if you look at panel 4, the facial structure doesn't really match the facial structure in panel 1. So, and the neck's a little longer here. So it's a funky little look on this, and yeah, I think the detail of the face is not my favorite either. So there's that. The rest of the background's awesome. The little woodshed house with all the little lines showing like their little shingles and all that, absolutely stunning. The forest imagery, absolutely stunning. So I guess, it's just hard to draw horses, I guess. So I don't know. I don't even know how to draw. So.
Maybe it's because I see I was looking at the wrong page, but maybe it's because we don't have horses anymore. Cars basically replaced horses.
That's true. There's references everywhere. I don't know why it's so hard. So some artists will have to tell me at some point. And they talk about everything that's going on. Lilith shows up and starts talking to Rachel's mom in this time setting, and Lilith wants to train Rachel and help her, I guess, and help. She's saying that she's helping the family, wants to help their crops and all that, and the family shuns her because she's a witch. And Rachel gets a kind of demonstration of her power as Lilith claps on a falling feather, and then suddenly the bird falls to the ground dead behind her. So super creepy. And Rachel, so you kind of see the dichotomy between the two characters also, which is great. Lilith is definitely a bringer of death, while Rachel then breathes life into the bird and brings it back to life. So Rachel is a bringer of life, and Lilith is a bringer of death, and that's the difference between the two. So very nice scene right here. This is one of the best, most impactful scenes of the entire book, I think. And then the farmer dad shows up, and this is where Lilith gets her little redeeming part a little bit. Is Lilith, of course, it talks back to the farmer who's like, stay off my land, harlot. And she mentions that Rachel's dad was beating her, and she's like, I could take care of this real quick, So you want to back down. So she does actually, I guess, care. So she has a human element.
Well, I was also wondering at that point when I was reading that, I was like, we know that Lilith is a liar. Is she just saying that to sway the audience or whatever? Or
right.
Is she telling the truth? Like, I think that it's almost like I don't know who to believe in that situation. But I would say that Rachel's parents in this situation, normally like in Hollywood or something, they would make them look horrible. And I thought they looked sort of respectable, as in the same level as like Lilith in that situation.
Yeah. But it is mentioned again later, and Rachel admits that he was beating her. So we do find out later that this was.
Have we read that part today, or
we do, but it's like next issue or the issue after that. So It's not right now. So Rachel goes off, and her mother slaps her because Rachel's entertaining the idea of actually going off and learning witchery. And then when she gets slapped, she then wakes up in the real world.
Yeah.
And we have a whole very, very nicely laid out page. And this is just cool artistry right here of like demonstrating the waking up. So you just see the little eye slits in the world, and then it goes back to darkness as she kind of falls asleep again. And the eyes slowly open up again. Very, very cool layouts, very unique way of depicting this. I loved how this was done. This is artistry right here. So cool. And she falls back asleep again, and we go back to those times again, and she meets a dude, and his name is it James? I can't remember.
What's this guy's name?
Her name is Bryn Aaron, and that's now we kind of learn her real name. Because it's been alluded to before that she was not actually herself at that point. So she's Bryn Aaron.
His name is James.
Is it James?
Yeah.
And then we learned that he has a sister, Mary Scott, who's been mentioned before. She is one of Lilith's witches. There's two of them, Mary Scott and one other. I don't remember the name. And And so we're starting to tie all the pieces together from this flashback now. So this is, as much as it's exposition, it's being in a flashback with this scenery and all this happening. Very, very good way of doing this and revealing everything. I think this worked very well. And then James gets shot, and then Rachel uses some of Lilith's potion to give him, quote, eternal life, and she says we'll both take it, and she forces him to swallow it, and then we wake back up in the real world once again. So Rachel's awake. Jet wakes up, and now when Rachel wakes up, she knows she's Bryn Aaron. She asks James to wake up, who's in the body of Jet, and that's how we learn why. Because Jet, this entire time, we've been wondering, why is she in this, and she's not fit in with all the rest. The witches made sense. Rachel made sense. Jet kind of was an outlier, and now we have the reveal. So
she was given this special potion or whatever.
Big, powerful deal, and so James is residing in the body of Jet at this point. Now we get a poem, 6 Little Whores, Glad to Be Alive. 1 slides up to Jack. Then there are 5, and there's another Jack the Ripper reference. And so that continues. So a lot of the quotes are kind of just thematic, but this one actually continues along the first page, and this poem keeps going. And it gets referenced again, 19th century author unknown. And it shows like this big cross standing in the snow as all this goes on. And then it cuts to Zoe sharpening her knife and changing it. The priest then, talks about how this was some sacred old weapon or whatever. And this is where it goes back, that in the beginning, Jack was a sword, and he actually calls the sword Jack, rather than like it's a person, not just Jack the Ripper at this point. So it does get twisted again, thank God, because I'm sick of the Jack the Ripper stuff. But he also says that it was a sword originally before it got mutilated, basically. And she asks, whose sword? He goes, our Lord. And he's a priest right now, so you're like, huh? And she goes, God, like questioning that. And he goes, no, Zoe, I think you both know who we serve. So it's very interesting at this point. So switch back to Rachel and all that, and they freak out because they realize that Johnny and Carol are dead. Carol is dead. Rachel tries to breathe life back into Johnny like she did in the past there, but she can't do it. And what happens is Johnny's dog, who actually showed up to foreshadow it back then, swallows Johnny's soul and then takes off freaked out. Yeah. So this is cool, creative, bizarre stuff, and I love it.
It's bizarre and then comedic at the same time.
It is, yeah. And that's the beautiful juxtaposition of all this. And I think we've said similar dozens of times at this point. It's bizarre and creepy, or it's gross, yet it's comedic at the same time. And that's why I love this, because it's very different than everything else. That angel of death shows back up and takes Carol's soul with her, and Rachel watches it. Beautiful reaction shot from Rachel. Rachel's just horrified about this, and you see this right here in the bottom panel on page 400 right here. Look at that expressiveness of her face and how horrified she is. Absolutely good. And I just love his depth of expressions that he does with his characters. I think he's almost unparalleled in that. Terry Moore, that is. All right. So we get back to some more cartoony scenes as they are kind of talking. And now Jet's realizing who she really is, and she's like, what's going on? And Jet sees a TV for the first time as James and freaks out. And then this box that's mentioned, that Lilith gave me a box, I buried it. Now this is from 6, 7, 8 issues ago, where we got that one wordless scene, and it pays off here. So he did not leave dangling plot threads. Very tightly done, very well done to bring that back at this point. And so they need to get that to get the potion to bring back Johnny, basically. So we're set on a new quest. And so the rest of this issue is the quest to rescue Johnny, basically. Or the rest of this volume, or whatever you want to call it. Arc. And so we get that. And the priest and Zoe walk around, and Zoe reveals that she knows he's the demon. And there's a lot of talk about the whole, he's a demon, wants her to birth the Antichrist. And she actually, and he actually mentions that in 5 years, she's going to, that's when he wants her to birth his spawn. And she mentions she's going to be 15 at that point, exactly the same as the Virgin Mary. And Malice keeps trying to assure her it's not the Antichrist, but since it's such a complete mirror of Christ, it's very obvious that he's trying to make her birth the Antichrist. She's like, I'm not doing that. 5 years is interesting. So he mentions 5 years at this point, and of course he has his storyline called 5 years later on. I wonder why he keeps referencing that as a time period, because he keeps doing that. It seems to be a trend at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And then I start thinking about his interest in music and boomer music and all that. And David Bowie. So this is my own just knowing, and that's why I mentioned the Jet reference also. David Bowie, in his Ziggy Stardust in the Spiders from Mars album, has a song called 5 Years. And that's part of that whole rock opera right there. So it could be this is me making this up.
About David
but
Bowie.
I'm wondering if that's why he keeps using that as a time period reference.
Like me and my wife, we had a discussion not too long ago, and we're both like, we have no idea why people like David Bowie so much. I don't like David Bowie. I hate David Bowie's music. But
I don't like a lot of David Bowie's music, but I think the Ziggy Stardust album.
But like, I don't understand the hype behind it.
The Ziggy Stardust album is a different ballgame, just of artistry again. But we can get into that later. I don't know that that's the case here. That's my attempting to just my knowledge of Terry Moore being very interested in music, trying to ascribe that. So it makes me sound smart though. What I should do is I should roll with it and say this is obviously a reference to it, rather than like being questioning about it, and then I'll sound smart. So so that's that scene. Lots of snow. Malice or she stabs the crap out of Malice's body at that point. And an onlooker lady sees what goes on, and that's the end of this issue. Next, snow fell on I think we're on 22, I hope, maybe. Snow fell on the living and the dead until they were one with winter their bed, Lilith's song. So I don't know what that's a reference to, but there you go. Lots of snow. And Dr. Seaman shows up at this point, and they really solidify their quest for Johnny, and very, very cartoony back and forth talking scenes for the next like 5-6 pages as they hang out and discuss how to save Johnny. Zoe runs off again and is hiding in a gas station bathroom, and this creepy dog breaks through the wall like it's going to kill her.
It's Cujo. Cujo.
Cujo. Who's Cujo?
That was like a 80s movie where this dog like tried to kill everybody, and I remember.
Is this a horror reference?
Yeah, I think it's a Stephen King book.
Oh, okay.
Let me look it up.
There's the dog. I don't read or watch any horror, so I get zero references like this.
Yeah, Stephen King, 1981 novel. It was also a film from 1983. I remember it as a kid, and just the like idea of the dog always like, I don't think I've seen the movie. I saw the commercials or something like that. And the dog was always like, they're in the car and the window's like almost rolled up, but the dog's trying to get through the window.
Yeah.
Same thing as here.
And it gets something caught in its mouth or whatever and falls over. Zoe sees it and he's crying. So the dog went from like monstrous nut job, like going to kill her, to just like crying little puppy on the next page here, right here. And again, just such a contrast of just like very scary horror stuff to like, cartoon. And Zoe takes compassion and rescues it. So it shows Zoe does have a moral compass. Again, Zoe has her human moments. She only kills bad people, really. So There you go. And she rescues the dog, and the dog's very nice. And there's a whole Zoe issue, basically. Then the gas station owner who has is that a St. Louis Blues jersey?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah. St. Louis Blues jersey on for hockey. Shows up and then goes and looks for Zoe and is going to kill her for breaking into whatever. He's got a gun out. And very, very cool use of lighting and shading in this. It's in the dark, and so he's got a flashlight, and where the flashlight pointed, it's light, and then the rest of it's kind of grayed out. So really enjoy that. Very nice scenery. He's got a VW van, and then Zoe gets in the van and crushes him, and then drives away happily. So what an issue.
Basically, it reminds me of like Garcia and the Grateful Dead.
He does look a little like Jerry Garcia. You're right. Interesting. Maybe another reference. So,
with all the references, it just came to my mind.
He does do a ton of references. I mean, it's true. So, I mean, all this could be very valid, or we could be very off base. You never know.
Yeah.
All right. So that was purely a Zoe issue almost. We had a lot of talk about like the quest with Johnny, but they really didn't do anything. It just switched to Zoe, and then we had this whole scene with her development there. Very, very interesting. Just 180 as far as things go.
I was trying to think for a minute, would that be like a good issue just to read as a single issue? And I don't really think so. But it doesn't get like developing her as a character overall. It
does, but because Zoe at this point, she's wordless for almost all of it except for when she's talking to the dog. If you just picked up this issue, you'd have no idea who she is.
So it's not a good story.
So that wouldn't help. Yeah. That's okay though. So next quote, I think we're issue 22, 23, 22. Got to be 22. Yeah. We bury things so deep, we no longer remember there was anything to bury. Our bodies remember, our neurotic states remember, but we don't. Jeanette Winterson. So now we're talking about death and remembrance, a big theme here, and I have no idea who this is.
We'll give
it a look.
Jeanette Winterson, another English writer. The first book, Oranges Are Not Only Fruit, a semi-autobiographical novel about a sensitive teenage girl rebelling against conventional values. Okay.
All right. Well,
fits with the
theme of this, for sure. I'm probably not going to go read that book. All right. So starts out with Jet opening a door. It's a 9-panel. It's like a very classic comic layout.
Yeah, golden age.
Shut door, very golden age. Yeah, shut door, open door, curious look, curious. Just so many expressions, and it's all kind of the same shot. How do I do this? Is this the way to do this? There we go. You kind of see the same shot of her over and over again, and but she's got different expressions on it. And at the very end of it, she turns on a light and off a light and on a light, and Rachel goes, "James, need any help?" "No, got it, thanks." And the next panel, she actually looks at a toilet, and she looks horrified. So and again, this is a dude waking up in a girl's body 400 years later, and just absolutely confused as to what's going on here. It goes back to that, like we had that whole scene with Zoe was pretty gruesome at the end of this, and we switched back to lighthearted comedy, slice of life again.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so couple, we get a little bit about that, and then she finally uses the bathroom, and we get some discussion on the bathroom and how silly that is. Dr. Seaman rigs Johnny up to like a bunch of like oxygen and all that, even though the body's dead. And Rachel's going to go and grab that box, which is we learn is at a like museum, and they go out, and it's like full on blizzard at this point, and they try to drive, And again, just slice of life comedy driving through a blizzard. They can't get it. Like, it's a 5-panel scene, and you actually don't see the car. You barely see the car through the whole thing, and it's barely moving across the same landscape the entire time. And it's got like very funny lettering, and the lettering on the fourth one, all the R's, the is all in the same spot, so it's not moving anymore.
Well, because it works perfectly, because if you lived in the Midwest and you've seen snow, you know exactly what that's like. And if you're in California or something and you've never been in the snow, then you know how terrifying the idea of that is.
Correct. And then the bottom panel just has Rachel going, "Damn it," but like in very small letters. So this was a beautiful page again. So they then trudge through the snow, walking themselves, and they get in a little argument because Rachel gave James that whole afterlife pill or whatever it was, totally without his consent. I mean, she totally kind of afterlife raped him, if you look at it, right? And so she's like, "You stole my afterlife," and they have a little fight there. And Rachel's really in the scene. She really loved James, and they were talking about getting married and all that. And another very interesting reveal here, as they argue about this, because Rachel is really adamant about how they were going to get married and all that. And James like, "You were just a kid. Like, what are you talking about?" And she goes, and James is like, "I was just placating you." And Rachel's really hurt. It's a really good emotional scene for this. And
it's playing on the whole Romeo and Juliet idea. They kill themselves, and so it's like extending beyond that. Would they have cared in this scenario?
And it's really tense. And then James reveals that actually Rachel was 9 when all this happened. Like, she was not a teenager. She was not older like that. And we then get another flashback scene where we see Rachel as she actually was, as a little girl, not somebody who's grown up. And so it makes more sense now. So like, Rachel had a crush on this, teenage guy. And the guy kind of was like, "Oh, I'll marry you when you're older," whatever, right? Just trying to be nice. And so she actually took it to heart, and because of the memory lapses and all that, it created this dichotomy. And Rachel's just absolutely crushed by this revelation. It is beautiful emotional drama right here.
What's good to note, though, is a lot of those. What was it? We studied World War I anecdote stories. And like, they're actually letters written to like those type of maybe not 9, but like the girl was like maybe 13 or 14 years old, and these guys went off to war, and then like years later when they came back, they like actually married those
oh, that's cute,
those girls.
Oh, well, that's nice.
It just reminded me of that right through this part.
Yeah, definitely. And then it just ends with them trudging through the snow after Rachel's got very, she's just had her world shattered, and just very expressive art through this. So good stuff. Yeah, this is again, it's picking back up to a nice climax again as a second arc here. Beautiful stuff. We are each our own devil, and we make this world our hell. Oscar Wilde. And that's that here. So yeah, the book doesn't sound like my wheelhouse either. Lots of YA has girls rebelling and being, "I'm not like other girls." Oh yeah. Oh, the Fiona. I'm behind on the comments. Sorry, Fiona. Am I getting X-Men Fate of I don't know.
Probably like the new thing that's coming out.
I have no idea. If it's an epic collection, yes. If it's not an epic collection, no.
It's probably the Hickman stuff or whatever.
If it's Hickman, I probably am not getting it. So yeah. All right, issue 23. We are each our own devil, and we make this world our hell. Oscar Wilde. That is a visceral quote. I love it. And it's got a nice box.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Heavy metal panel.
Super heavy metal panel here. It's awesome. Shows this type of thing shows Terry Moore's depth as an artist, though, because he can really do anything. And that's that. Now Rachel actually mentions Oscar Wilde in a panel at some point in here. So that's interesting how he ties some of these in also. But I want to get to the first splash page right after this, because the art is, again, this is just a visceral, beautiful drawing. And this is the Manson Historical Society. And it looks like just like the ultimate like Disneyland haunted house. Super good detail. All that snow is, I mean, this is just.
Yeah, if you had that like an original page, like it'd be like.
I wish I did.
Sitting up.
I wish I did. That'd be a great one to frame and put on my wall. Cool. Yeah. JT says yes, Eb. So it is an Eb. Yeah, so I will be getting whatever that is then. Cool. Okay, so they break into this spot. And she mentions Oscar Wilde right here. She sees the old box and it's all weathered and looking terrible. And she says, like Dorian Gray. And Jet goes, who? She goes, you know what? Oscar Wilde. And she goes, who? So again, some slice of life fun in this. I actually got I guess it's downstairs. I got a short story collection of Oscar Wilde short stories. I found it at Half Price Books. So I'm probably going to be reading that shortly. Okay, sorry, that was a digression. They get the box and they leave, and they find Zoe in the van, in Zoe's new van that Zoe appropriated, and there's blood all over the front of it. Jet rips out the dude's arm where she ran over it. So a gruesome yet funny scene again. And she's like, "Oh, I found why your van's stuck." And then Rachel feels Zoe's spirits and sees all the dead skulls. And actually proves she's not just a regular kid, which is kind of nice. All right. And then humor moments. Zoe accuses them of being zombies, which is very funny. And she has a very expressive cartoony face when she does this also. And then Rachel takes over the van. Zoe asks Rachel, why doesn't her breath show? Because everybody's got their like cold breath breathing. Which is great. And they drive back, and Rachel asks Zoe to take her to Lilith. And Zoe's like, you probably shouldn't do that. And Rachel's like, I'm doing it. And she's like, your funeral, which is, I love the irony of that with all the time she's died so far. Very funny. And Earl gets Johnny's dog, which has Johnny's soul in it. And Siemens starts patching up Johnny. The power goes out. And that flips Rachel out as she tries to come back. And she hopes that Johnny's okay. I love again the expression of the power going out. So Rachel's in complete blackness. You see Rachel. So we get nice visual. He could have done this. I've seen a lot of artists do just black with some bubbles.
The John Byrne Alpha Flight issue.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, John Byrne's used that so many times, even himself. But gosh, he even makes fun of in She-Hulk. He makes fun of him using that himself. And he does a scene of it, and then She-Hulk actually goes, "Byrne, this is just like the Alpha Flight issue. You've already done this." So funny. Sorry for the digression again. But we get the lights back on. There's a generator, and so it's okay. And then Rachel delivers whatever and tells Seaman how to do it. And they go off to find Lilith. And we get the creepiest scene, maybe of the whole thing so far, with a bunch of women hanging in the air, like hangman's nooses, but just literally in the air. And she says there's women screaming and all that. So, and I believe that's the end of this issue. Yeah, that's a good issue end. So now we're really getting into it. So they're about to confront Lilith. They've got the whole witches being brought back. Johnny's hanging by a thread. We have a huge emotional impact by the end of this fourth volume of trade paperbacks here.
Florence Welch.
You look up Florence Welch here. Next quote for our 24th issue and the last one for this stream. I'm a choir girl gone horribly, desperately wrong. I'm going to guess this is a musician.
Yeah, an English singer. A lot of these people are English. There's an English theme here.
Is that because the colonial elements of what happened? maybe.
I wonder, because that's pretty interesting. A lot of the writers and
David Crosby is not English though. So
yeah, so it's not like an entire catalog of it, but William Shakespeare was in there.
yeah, so we get a couple scenes now of these bodies suspending in the air, and the girls reacting freaked out to it, and then Mary Scott's, I guess, wolf familiars attack them, and Rachel calms them down because Rachel's basically an angel, and Zoe kills one of the wolves because that's what Zoe does. She kills things. And that all continues. And the ladies being suspended start freaking out. Tons of snow. So now Terry Moore has to draw all these dots on every single page, on every single panel as this is going through. Mary Scott rolls out, gets really pissed that one of her wolves has been killed. And it won't kill Rachel, even though she commands it to. And she says, Bryn Aaron, who is Rachel's past self, has that effect on animals, Mary Scott. You know that. And I guess the other one's name is Lindy. So, Lindy. No. The other witch has taken the body of Zoe's older sister, who she killed at the very beginning of this. So it all starts to tie in here very nicely. And that's Lindy. And this is a very funny moment where... and it's also this is a reference that's dated now. So the witch calls Zoe a little psycho, and Zoe says, "Oh, okay, you might want to get tested for STDs," which is not the part of that because she's making fun of her older sister. She says she was a hot item on Craigslist, and so for those who don't know Craigslist anymore, because that got shut down a long time ago now, Craigslist used to be like they used to have like these hookup boards or whatever where people would be nasty. It was mostly prostitutes.
Yeah.
So it's basically her calling her a hooker in a cultural reference. But that's gone now. So it'd be OnlyFans now, I guess. So. All right. Very funny. Let's see. I'll probably give this series a look-see when the mood hits, since if I do horror. This is like, I gotta stress, like, I hate horror. Like, I do not read any horror, do not enjoy it whatsoever. And this is my favorite comic of all time. So I don't know that you have to be in a horror mood to enjoy this.
You know, because the thing about horror is a lot of the times they just hit on tropes and just gross out. And so it's never like, there's no depth to it usually.
Right. This is all character depth. And so you mentioned Babylon 5. You know, Fiona, we're of course tight because we both like Babylon 5 so much. And Babylon 5, again, it's one of those things. Babylon 5 had such character depth to it that it could have been any show. It could have been a modern show or a fantasy show or whatever. And it's that good. Like, this just has that level of character depth, and that's why I'm so obsessed with it. So I'll shill for the book for a little bit. There you go. All right. And by the way, okay. Well, I'll wait till I'm done with this issue because this is the end of the last issue, but for today. But we'll talk about Terry Moore's new book that's out afterwards. So Zoe makes fun of them, and Mary Scott realizes that Jet is actually James and that they're sisters, and so she kind of gets a redemption there as a witch, and it's almost like they're about to be back together, and then Lindy, the other witch, just like earlier, has a snake come out of her mouth and attack Jet, and Zoe slashes and kills her sister for a second time because she's Zoe, and the snake just keeps growing and tries to force itself into Jet. I guess it's a demon of some sort. And all of them fight together against this snake to make sure that that Jet's okay. And they do rescue Jet from the demon. Doesn't happen. And let's see, Zoe, that Satan's hide hide it, bury it. Oh, for so the person she killed is talking about the knife, so it's gonna ruin Zoe, I guess. Jet's laying there, and dying again. It looks like, and Zoe and Rachel are standing there, and they see all this stuff there. Jet wakes up as Jet, not James, this time because James kind of as a personality took over Jet. Rachel has both. It's a very interesting dichotomy. Rachel's like her past self, Aaron Bryn, and Rachel at the same time, whereas Jet, like, there was a scene which we skipped over earlier where Jet, like, Rachel tries to talk to Jet and she can't. James is just like, what? I can't do anything about this. When Jet wakes up again, James isn't there and she's just Jet, and she doesn't really know what's going on at all. She's waking up in this field of death, and she's like, what the hell? And then Rachel kind of laughs about Jet being back. So that was that. Very cute. And that's the end of that. So it's a good climax where Jet kind of comes back and we get a little confrontation with a couple of the witches. We don't get a full Lilith confrontation yet, though. So we're still waiting for a bigger climax to come out of this. Mm-hmm. But very nice middle of the story. I think we're a little more than halfway through the series at this point. Yeah, there's 41 issues, 42 issues, 41, I think. And we're at 24. So what are your thoughts at this point in the series, Captain Cummings?
I mean, this one was a lot faster pace and really engaging. Like, you read and you don't realize how much you've read. You're like, oh, I could just, keep reading, honestly.
Yeah, slow rolled that beginning. The first 4 or 5 issues, like, you had no idea what was going on. You're just kind of figuring it out. You really learn a lot by issue 12 because you kind of understand the story by that point. And then in this, we get the reveals of everything. So we know exactly what's going on. And it just starts plowing through just character growth, action, death and destruction. Everything's covered in here.
And it's like the slower that you do read it, the more you get out of it too.
Right.
Like, just going back through it again, just like last week, I think I read it. I started reading last night, and it's like, so then I'm plowing through it, trying to get it done so we can talk about it. And it's like, oh, if I would have slowed down, I would have noticed much more. That would be the only thing that I would tell people is don't read it like it's a regular comic. Read it.
Yeah, you want to take your time with this. Definitely. So it's nice going through it again and just doing this. Actually, discussing it on this level helps you remember it quite a bit more.
Well, yeah, because the more you repeat something, especially when it's out loud, your memory does better.
So yesterday, and I put this link in the chat too, Terry Moore came out with a graphic novel pre-order for Ever, which is his new book. 17-year-old. What's that?
Is that sold out yet?
No, and I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised in some way because his limited hardcovers usually have about 650 in terms of print run, and he did 1,000 this time. So usually the 650 sell out pretty well, and we're what's 1,000 minus 380? So we're over
that. 300 in stock. Okay.
Yeah, there's 380.
Oh, it'll probably sell out, but
it'll sell out in the next couple of weeks. So 620 have already sold, right? So he's about at his normal sales spot. These will sell out, and this is the end of the hardcover. And
I remember when you texted me and said that 5 years was live, I was like, oh, my first thought was I'll wait till I get home. And then I was like, no, I'm not doing anything. It's lunch. So I ordered it on my phone, and
5 years sold out.
Again, and it was already sold out by the time we got home.
Yeah, you were smart in doing that. That sold out super fast. But again, there were only 650 of those. So it's a big difference between 650 and 1,000. But this is new graphic novel.
Cartooning forever, so
and
he has a pretty big following.
Yeah, he's doing like me. Now it's 72 pages. So most of my graphic novels are 72 pages. So he just did a full graphic. I do a quarterly graphic novel just like this.
Because that's the perfect size for sit down reading and to tell a full story.
Right. Yeah. 22 pages as a single issue really isn't enough. No. And when you get beyond that, it becomes a different thing. So yeah, very cool. and this is what he did. I know he's finished with it. He showed the stack of his art on Twitter the other day. I haven't actually looked at the description. I literally bought it without reading the description.
I did too.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't hated anything that he's done, so.
Right. 17-year-old Ever will become the key to fulfilling an ancient prophecy the day she turns 18. Giggity. After meeting Timothy, a sophisticated fallen angel, Ever realizes she is to be a human sacrifice at the gate of darkness. With Timothy on her trail, Ever searches for answers and learns the truth about the prophecy and why she must fight like hell to stop it.
I mean, it already sounds really good. I mean, it's just a lot like this, you know.
It sounds a lot like this, yeah.
And does, because I remember Echo had, what biblical figure did that have in it?
I don't remember. I haven't read Echo in 15
years. The first murder. So it was Cain.
Cain. That's right. It did. Mm-hmm. I remember. Yep. Yeah, he likes the biblical themes, which I appreciate. So this is cool. I bought this, of course, minute one. This will sell out in hardcover, and then what's going to happen like 5 years from now is everybody's going to be looking for it, and you're not going to be able to get it at a reasonable price. So I would definitely do that.
You might be lucky, and they might sell a soft cover version.
Oh, they've got soft cover versions are going to comic shops, so it's going to be a regular.
Yeah,
I think it's like $15 instead of $30. But this, like, basically they do the pre-order of the hardcovers to pay for their print run, and then they get the profit from the rest after that. So I don't know. I want a hardcover because I like this version of Rachel Rising that I'm showing you is the limited edition version, which I talked about last week. He has this. He did this as a limited. Then he did a regular hardcover cover, and that regular hardcover is even like $150, $200. So like, it's it's pretty solid. But I want it just because I read Terry Moore stuff over and over and over again. So mine's getting a little worn on this, unfortunately. Sucks. Oh well. But it's good stuff, and I definitely recommend it. So that's about it. I didn't tell my story about how I met Terry Moore, though. Are there still people in the chat who want to hear this?
There's 8.
There's 8. Are you guys in the chat? Do you want to hear my story about meeting Terry Moore? Or should I save it till next time and really build it up and hype it again? We're already an hour and a half in.
I mean, we'll be an hour and a half in next time too.
We will. That's true. The last one we only have. So I actually mathed it out. So there's 7 graphic novels. So maybe I'll save all the stories for the last one.
That's probably that's a good idea.
Yeah, because we only have we only have 1 graphic novel to cover in that one. So yeah, okay, I'll do that. All right. Anything else you want to say?
Ooh, my favorite YouTuber, Sam the Cooking Guy.
Sam the Cooking Guy.
Called One Pan Egg Sandwich.
One Pan Egg Sandwich. That sounds easy. That's pretty standard though, isn't it?
He'll have some twist. He likes his butter, and I don't know how he's so skinny. Well, he's always behind the table, so I don't know how skinny he is.
Sam the Cooking Guy. That's your takeaway from this afternoon, everybody. All right. With that, sign up for my newsletter. I think that's in the link in the description because I'll give you a free graphic novel, and you should enjoy that. If you missed Flying Sparks, I should show my own shit, not Terry's shit. What am I doing? I have a pre-order store up, and you will enjoy Flying Sparks. It is the best superhero comic book out there right now that's still live. So let me grab the link to that. There's a pre-order store. I'm going to go to print in, I think, a week or 2. I should have the digital version out when? As soon as I get the Kickstarter funds. So I'll hit that. I'll send the surveys out as soon as the Kickstarter funds come in, and then you guys can check that out. It is my Romeo and Juliet superhero story. If you like the romance, the character development, and all that, this is the superhero story for you. I guarantee you will enjoy it. All right. That's everything for today. And we will be back next week. If I don't do other streams in the meantime, I might. Thinking about it. So, cool. That's it. Goodbye.